They were calm. You were explaining. Not loudly, not emotionally, just explaining. Clarifying your intent, reframing what you meant, softening the edges. And later, hours later, it bothered you because something felt off. You spoke carefully, you were reasonable, you were professional. So why did you leave that meeting smaller? That wasn't random, and it wasn't about tone. It was structure. At work, there is a specific trap that feels fair. You're given two options. Both seem legitimate. Both sound professional. And yet, whichever one you choose, you lose leverage. That is the no-win frame. If you don't detect it early, you will cooperate with it. We turn philosophy into self-mastery. But self-mastery begins with recognizing the structure you are standing inside. The no-win frame is not aggression.
It is positioning. A no-win frame is a decision structure where every available option reduces your authority, increases your obligation, or reinforces someone else's control. You defend, you justify, you explain your workload, you reassure. Public pressure, a quick alignment, a polite but loaded question, a false choice. The frame shifts the burden of proof onto you. Now you are not choosing, you are proving. And the moment you begin proving, your jurisdiction narrows. Authority, future negotiation power, perception of steadiness. Here's what stable, capable professionals often miss. The no-win frame is rarely hostile. It sounds like this. Would you rather handle this now or take ownership next quarter? Both imply ownership. Or, are you comfortable committing to this timeline,
Or should we escalate?
both imply inadequacy.
Or, do you think you can handle it? Or do we need more support?
Both imply doubt.
Notice what's missing. The option to question the premise. You weren't choosing between tasks. You were choosing between forms of submission. That's why you felt the subtle extraction afterward. You paid an approval tax. Not because you're weak, because you're conscientious. Conscientious people become default containers in workplace systems. You are reliable, calm, competent, so pressure is routed toward you. Over time, identity drifts. You become the stabilizer, the one who adjusts, the one who absorbs. You start believing that absorbing is strength. Sometimes it is. Often, it's surrender. You begin replying faster to prevent escalation.
You volunteer clarification before being accused. You soften your no into, let me see.
Those are behavioral tells. They signal a negotiable frame. And once your frame is negotiable, others will test it. The trap isn't manipulation. The trap is this. You value being seen as reasonable more than you value preserving leverage. That motive is uncomfortable, but it's honest. I want to be seen as competent. That's the internal line. Now the case. Workplace. Quarterly planning meeting. 10 people. Glass walls. 3:17 p.m. Your manager says, "We need someone to take responsibility for the rollout delay. Would you prefer to own the communication or coordinate the corrective plan?" Silence. You know the rollout failed because of cross-team dependencies, but the room is watching. If you choose communication, you become the face of failure. If you choose corrective plan, you inherit ongoing burden. Both increase your access ledger deficit. You choose corrective plan because it feels proactive. The meeting moves on. Later, tasks expand, scope grows. Recognition does not shift. Because you accepted the frame. Do this, not that. Do, question the premise before choosing. Not, choose quickly to appear decisive. Do, slow the tempo. Not, fill the silence. Do, Separate role from responsibility. Not merge identity with problem. Correction begins with one principle. If both options weaken you, decline the premise. That does not mean defiance. It means reframing. Tactical script 1. I want to clarify something before choosing. Are we assuming ownership sits here, or are we mapping cross-team factors? Notice, you did not refuse. You expanded jurisdiction. Tactical script 2. Before I commit to either path, can we define what success and accountability look like across teams? Again, you widened the frame. Tactical script 3. I'm comfortable contributing, but I want to be precise about scope before accepting ownership. Precision protects authority. The deeper mechanism is this. No-win frames exploit your speed. The faster you respond, the narrower your options become. Slowness is not weakness. It is structural power. Now, let's define the core mechanism clearly. The no-win compression loop. Public narrowing of options, implied status threat, accelerated response pressure, internal motive activation, approval, competence, harmony, premature commitment, expanded obligation afterward, fail condition. You overcorrect, you become defensive or confrontational. That shifts you into visible resistance, which damages position differently. You are not fighting the person, you are resisting compression. Trade-off truth. When you interrupt a no-win frame early, you may look slower, less agreeable, less eager. That is the cost. Comfort declines, respect increases. Part 1 ends with this realization. You were not losing arguments, you were losing frame. And losing frame does not feel dramatic, it feels responsible. It feels adult. It feels like being the bigger person. That's why it survives, because it disguises itself as professionalism. In workplace systems, professionalism is often confused with absorption. You absorb tension, you absorb ambiguity, you absorb deadlines, you absorb emotional misfires from people above you. And the more you absorb, the more reliable you appear. But reliability without boundary becomes extraction. Here is a deeper behavioral X-ray. Watch your breathing in high-pressure meetings.
Does it become shallow when decisions narrow? Do you lean forward slightly when someone frames you as the solution? Do you begin speaking before the sentence is fully formed in your head? That micro-acceleration is compliance. Not because you are weak, because you are adaptive. Adaptive people become default shock absorbers in hierarchical environments, and hierarchies reward shock absorbers with more shock. Let's expand the mechanism. There are 3 common no-win workplace structures. Structure 1. The competence test trap. Can you handle this? If you say no, you look incapable. If you say yes, you inherit undefined expansion. Both alter perception. The hidden premise is this: refusal equals limitation. But competence is not measured by how much you accept. It is measured by how precisely you define. Structure 2. The loyalty trap. Are you committed to the team outcome? If you question scope, you appear resistant. If you comply fully, you erode boundaries. The premise equates compliance with loyalty, but loyalty without jurisdiction is exploitation. Structure 3. The urgency trap. We need a decision now. Urgency compresses cognition. Compression reduces nuance. Reduced nuance produces binary thinking. Binary thinking accelerates surrender. That is the compression cycle. Notice something uncomfortable. Most no-win traps work because they activate identity, not fear.
identity. You see yourself as competent, reliable, strategic, team-oriented. So when a frame subtly questions those traits, you move quickly to protect them. That movement is the opening. Another micro-observation.
After accepting compressed choices, you often rationalize. It's not that big of a deal. I can manage it. It will build visibility. This internal narrative softens the extraction, but your nervous system knows. That's why later you feel heavier, slightly slower, slightly irritated without clear cause. That irritation is misaligned jurisdiction. Now let's look at long-term impact. When you repeatedly accept no-win frames, your workload increases unpredictably. Your role clarity decreases. Your perceived boundaries blur. Others test you earlier in meetings. You are consulted last, but assigned first. This is how authority erodes without conflict, not through confrontation, through silent acceptance. Here's a second case. Different environment. Promotion cycle discussion. One-on-one with senior leadership. We're deciding between you and another candidate. Would you rather take on interim leadership responsibilities now to prove readiness, or wait until the next cycle? Both options imply insufficiency. If you take interim leadership, you perform at a higher level without title. If you wait, you signal hesitation. Binary again. The hidden structure is this. You are responsible for demonstrating worth instead of leadership defining criteria. The subtle shift. The burden of proof moves downward. That is jurisdiction inversion. When jurisdiction inverts consistently, confidence drains quietly. Not loudly, quietly. You begin preparing more than necessary, over-optimizing presentations, over-explaining progress, preemptively justifying delays. That is containment drift. You become your own auditor. And once you audit yourself constantly, others no longer need to. Efficient for the system, costly for you. This is why sovereignty at work is not aggression. It is clarity under compression. You don't fight frames. You widen them. You don't reject responsibility. You define it. You don't slow decisions to appear difficult. You slow them to prevent structural leakage. Here is the difficult truth. If you consistently accept no-win choices, people will not consciously disrespect you. They will unconsciously categorize you as absorbent. Absorbent people are useful, not authoritative. Authority comes from controlled acceptance, not endless flexibility. And once you see this pattern clearly, something changes. You begin noticing compression instantly. You hear the binary earlier. You feel urgency sooner. You detect subtle competence challenges hidden inside neutral language. That awareness alone reduces extraction, because awareness interrupts autopilot. The final realization before correction is this. You were cooperating with compression because you equated speed with strength. But speed without inspection benefits whoever set the frame, not you. And frame, once accepted repeatedly, reshapes identity. That is how professionals become smaller without noticing. Not because they lacked talent, because they lacked interruption. And the most dangerous part is this. Nothing looks broken. You are still respected, still invited to meetings, still considered capable, which makes it harder to detect. Because erosion without humiliation feels like growth. You get more responsibility, more visibility, more involvement. But involvement without jurisdiction is dilution. You speak more often, but define less. You contribute more, but decide less. And slowly, your internal posture changes. You stop asking, "Is this structurally sound?" And you start asking, "How can I handle this well?" That shift is subtle, but it moves you from architect to executor, from position holder to pressure absorber, from sovereign to reliable. Reliability is safe, Sovereign is decisive. Workplaces reward reliability loudly. They respect sovereignty quietly. If you don't interrupt no-win frames early, you will wake up 6 months later carrying weight that was never officially assigned to you. And because you accepted it incrementally, you won't know where it began. That is the cost of cooperating with compression.
And until you see it clearly, you will keep calling it professionalism. But professionalism without jurisdiction is quiet surrender. And surrender, when repeated politely enough, stops feeling like loss. It starts feeling like identity. That is where correction begins. Frame precedes outcome. If you keep cooperating with compressed choices, your authority will shrink gradually. Not dramatically, gradually. And gradual erosion is the hardest to detect. That is why this matters. Correction begins earlier than you think, not at the choice, at the signal. Early interruption is the skill. Definition: early interruption is the act of slowing or widening a narrowing frame before you accept its premise. Behavior patterns to watch: sudden either-or language, public binary framing, speed pressure, implied competence tests, meetings, performance reviews, quick syncs, Slack threads with stakeholders included. The cost: long-term leverage. Now we install the protocol. The Jurisdiction Reset Protocol. Purpose: restore decision space before commitment. Step 1. Detect compression. Notice binary framing immediately. Step 2. Pause verbally. Insert one clarifying line before answering. Step 3. Expand scope. Bring in context, stakeholders, or structural factors. Step 4. Separate role from blame. Clarify contribution versus ownership. Step 5. Reframe timeline. Shift urgency when appropriate. Step 6. Offer conditional commitment. Commit to defined scope, not undefined burden. Fail condition. You over-explain. Over-explaining signals insecurity. Keep language clean. Example: same meeting scenario.
Manager: would you rather own communication or corrective plan?
You: before choosing, I'd like to understand how cross-team dependencies factor into accountability. Silence. The room recalibrates. Pressure shifts outward. That is jurisdiction. Another micro-observation. Watch who relaxes when you accept compressed choices. That reveals where extraction flows. Do this, not that. Do: ask one clarifying question, not deliver a speech. Do: keep tone neutral, not sound defensive. Do: anchor to structure, not anchor to emotion. Philosophical reinforcement. Machiavelli understood this. Power belongs to the one who defines the terms of engagement. If you accept another person's terms without inspection, you participate in your own reduction. This is not paranoia, it is structural awareness. Now expect pushback.
When you widen the frame, some people will react.
It's just a simple question. We don't need to overcomplicate this. Notice the move. They label clarification as complication, compression disguised as efficiency. Your response: I'm aligned on speed. Clarity prevents downstream friction. No emotion, no resistance. Precision. Environment recalibrates. When you stop cooperating with compression, fewer binary traps appear. Responsibility distributes more evenly. You are consulted earlier, because you are no longer the easiest container. The 7-day protocol. Day 1 and 2. Document every binary framing you encounter. No reaction change yet. Day 3 and 4. Insert one clarifying question in at least one live scenario. Day 5. Track response shifts. Did urgency soften? Did others contribute? Day 6.
Apply conditional commitment once. Day 7. Audit results. Did scope expand? Did responsibility distribute? Did compression reduce? Not feelings, structure. Here is the deeper shift. Detach from the need to look immediately competent. Immediate competence invites burden. Measured competence signals authority. This is sovereignty at work, not dominance, not rebellion. Calibration. Final reflection. The game you couldn't win was never about effort. It was about frame. When every option costs authority, the solution is not choosing better. It is questioning structure. Over time, perception shifts. Less reactive, more precise, harder to compress. And that permanently changes your access ledger. Authority grows from measured correction, not emotional reaction. And once you stop cooperating with no-win frames, you stop shrinking in rooms you deserve to stand in. Now move from concept to friction. Knowing the structure is easy. Interrupting it live is harder. The first time you apply early interruption, your pulse will rise. Not because you're wrong, because you are breaking pattern. Workplace systems are rhythm-based. Everyone learns who absorbs and who defines. When you stop absorbing automatically, the rhythm shifts, and rhythm shifts feel uncomfortable. Here is what that discomfort is. Withdrawal of predictability. People were used to you choosing quickly. You inserted clarity instead, and that changes position. We'll slow slightly, land harder, remove density stacking, clean the duplicated line. Here is the Donovan-optimized version. That creates a half-second vacuum, and vacuums reveal hierarchy. Let's walk through a high-pressure scenario. Board review, budget constraints. The CFO says, "We need either deeper cuts from your department or stronger justification for your current headcount. Which direction do you want to take?" Binary again. If you accept cuts, you weaken capacity. If you over-justify, you appear defensive. The room is watching. Here is the disciplined interruption. I want to clarify something before choosing. Are we evaluating cost reduction in isolation or in relation to revenue impact projections? Notice what happened. You did not refuse. You widened jurisdiction. Now the discussion must expand. You are no longer reacting to a cost frame. You are repositioning into value. That is structural correction. Most professionals panic here. They over-explain, they defend, they list accomplishments, they justify effort. That is energy leakage. Sovereignty uses containment, short sentences, measured pace, defined terms. Another example. Slack thread. Senior leader writes, "Can you confirm you'll handle client escalation personally, or should we reconsider account ownership?" Public channel, visible audience. A competence trap disguised as clarification. Instead of reacting immediately, pause, then respond, "I can handle the escalation. I'd also like clarity on how account ownership is being evaluated moving forward." You accepted responsibility, but you refused compression. That is the difference. Correction is not rejection. It is expansion. Now expect pushback. Why are we complicating this? We just need a simple answer. Here is the sovereign response. Simplicity is valuable. Precision ensures the simplicity holds. Calm, no sarcasm, no defensiveness. You are reframing complexity as protection. That protects your reaction receipt. Now we deepen the protocol under pressure.
Detect compression language. Slow tempo. One inhale before speaking. Ask one clarifying structural question. Anchor your answer to scope. End with conditional commitment. That final step matters. Conditional commitment sounds like this. I'm aligned on this outcome provided we're clear on X and Y. You are not resisting. You are defining boundaries. Now the long-term shift. When you consistently widen frames, meetings change.
People pre-clarify before approaching you. Binary traps reduce. You are consulted earlier. Why? Because you signal non-absorption. Systems adapt to friction. If you are frictionless, you will be shaped. If you introduce calibrated friction, you shape. That is the trade-off. You may not be the fastest responder. You may not be the easiest option, but you will become the most structurally respected. Here is what most people misunderstand. Sovereignty does not mean dominating conversation. It means controlling acceptance. You can be calm, soft-spoken, reserved, and still sovereign. Because sovereignty is jurisdiction, not volume. Machiavelli understood this. Power belongs to the one who defines the terms of engagement. If you accept compressed choices without inspection, you surrender definition. And whoever defines the situation controls the outcome. Machiavelli was not obsessed with cruelty. He was obsessed with positioning. Outcomes are rarely determined by effort alone. They are shaped by whoever defines perception first. In workplace dynamics, perception is power. If others perceive you as absorbent, they assign you weight. If they perceive you as precise, they approach you carefully. The difference is not personality, it is frame control. And frame control begins the moment you refuse to answer a compressed question without inspecting it. Previously, your internal line was, "I need to show I can handle this." Now it becomes, "I need to define what handling this actually means." That shift changes posture. Posture shifts perception. Perception shifts opportunity. Now a failure example. You attempt early interruption, but instead of one question, you deliver 5 minutes of explanation. That is overcorrection. The room tightens. You feel exposed. Brevity is discipline. Correction must be clean. One question, one scope anchor, one conditional commitment. No speeches. Another scenario. Performance review. You've done well this quarter. Would you prefer to volunteer for cross-functional projects or lead internal restructuring? Binary again. Hidden premise. Current performance is insufficient. Sovereign interruption. I'm open to expanding scope. I'd like clarity on how initiative is being measured before choosing direction. You are not rejecting growth. You are requesting metrics. Metrics restore jurisdiction. Without metrics, growth becomes extraction. Now, the 7-day protocol. Day 1. Write down 3 recent binary decisions you accepted quickly. Day 2. Identify the hidden premise inside each. Day 3. Insert one clarifying question before choosing. Day 4. Track whether the frame expands. Day 5. Apply conditional commitment once. Day 6. Observe tone shifts. Day 7. Audit results. Did scope become clearer? Did urgency reduce? Did others clarify earlier? That is structural movement. Now, restoration. When you stop cooperating with no-win frames, clarity returns. Mental speed improves. Decision fatigue decreases. You replay conversations less. Because jurisdiction was preserved in the moment, that reduces residue. The weight you carried was not workload. It was undefined acceptance. Once acceptance becomes defined,
pressure becomes proportionate.
And proportion restores sovereignty. Final reinforcement. You are not trying to win every interaction. You are preventing invisible loss.
The game disappears when you refuse compressed rules, not by confrontation, by interruption. And once you master interruption, the workplace stops shrinking you. It recalibrates around you. That is the structural outcome. Now your sharpened 3-day experiment. For the next 3 decisions, insert one clarifying question. Define scope in 1 sentence. Track whether obligation expands or contracts. Comment with expanded, equal, contracted. No explanations, just data. Sovereignty grows through measured correction, not emotion. And once you see contraction consistently, you will understand something powerful. You were not overpowered. You were unexamined.